It's Monk from Baroque Television. We're here at the Mac Theatre in Belfast. It's an unusual venue for us. It's a slightly unusual interview this afternoon. We're not actually talking to anybody from a band. We're talking to a lady who for many, many years made sure what happened on stage happened on stage. The renowned tour manager, Kim Hawes. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Belfast. I don't think it's your first time here, I would imagine.
No, it's not, and I love it. I do love it, Jim.
You've just given a very informative talk and background into your career, so we're just going to touch on some of the highlights. And the big thing about your story as a tour manager, it's sort of been a series of coincidences, really, of you just being in the right place at the right time, hasn't it? You've sort of fallen into your various roles.
My career was never intended to be music. I can't sing, I can't play. I would have loved to have been in a band, but I can't do that because of those two reasons. But I had the most amazing career within music, probably longer than anybody that was a musician. Like over 40 years, because it started in 1979.
Yeah, it started with Elvis Costello and the Attractions.
My favourite band ever. Started Elvis Costello and the Attractions in Preston, in Lancashire. And that was just a fluke from a very naive 19-year-old at the time, that just all she wanted to do was meet the band, and lied about it, got taken backstage afterwards, and from then back to the hotel because the band had already left. And then the tour manager to Elvis Costello realised that I hadn't actually been with them when they filmed Saturday Night Live in New York, and that I had lied, and so it sussed me out. But on the other hand, he also said, would I like to spend the evening with him? And I just said no, because I was too naive. I didn't even know what he was looking for, because I had to catch my bus home. But invited me on the rest of the tour. Again, being naive, hadn't realised what his intention. And I just said, you're going to have to speak to my mum. So he called me the next day and he spoke to my mum. And she just said to him, well, I need to know exactly where you're going. And I need to know which hotels where you're staying in at the end of these shows. And it was only like a week left, so it wasn't that long. But she was very on the ball, and she booked me my own hotel room. So I blew him out. And we ended up sitting, I just sat at the first gig that I was there, and I just sat in the corner wondering what on earth, I just thought being on tour must have been so glamorous. And I'm sat in this dark, dingy, cold venue all day with nothing to do. And nobody spoke to me, of course, because who was I anyway? Until it got to about an hour before the doors opened, and they couldn't find anybody to sell the merchandise because the lady that was doing it was ill. And so because she was ill, there was nobody to take her place, and this guy just said to me, can I sell shirts? And I went, yeah, I can sell shirts. Partly because my grandmother had a market stall on Blackburn Market, so I was used to selling stuff, so that was quite good. And so I just fell straight into it. And I did it for the rest of the tour, and went home having the most amazing time of my life, thinking, well, that was an experience. And then I got a phone call from the merchandising company a couple of weeks later, asking me to go on tour and do it properly and get paid for it this time. Which
is how you moved into the more rock orientated end of things, because that tour was with the mighty Rush.
It was.
I'd like to ask you it is quite topical due to his unfortunate passing reason, but what is your memories of Neil Peart?
Neil used to always have a go at me, actually, because I think I mentioned before, my musical tastes are not heavy metal. But saying that, I love the bands I've worked for, because I recognise that music and I appreciate it. So it's changed in ways that maybe if I'd have stayed the same person as I was, I would never have listened to like Motorhead or something like that. But now I will, because of the fact of what it means to me personally. But Neil used to take the mickey out of me because, like I say, I was 19 and I was into disco, and he hated disco. So he did take the mickey out of me, but he was a lovely man, amazing drummer. Amazing drummer, and he was a nice guy. But all of Rush were very quiet, very much gentleman in all respect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had a reputation of having an enormous attention to detail as well in terms of their live performances.
Their live performances were, I remember that their crew, for instance, used to get absolutely uptight about how everything had to be so perfect. And there was an instance on this where we had we were playing Leisure D-side actually, and it was like an ice rink, and they used to cover the floor up, and they used to use the exits as the entrances to everybody. So the exit doors were where you came in, and the actual entrance was used to sell the merchandise. So it was kind of a weird situation where the foyer had stairs on either side of it, coming down, not very many, about 6 on each side, but coming down into the ice rink. And the merchandising room was at the top. And what had happened was, Rush were a band where everybody had to have merchandising. It was a well-known fact on that particular tour that we were, on all their tours actually, that you were one of the first people in because you were having t-shirts delivered by planes, because that's how many they sold. We had companies working all night printing the shirts because that's how many we needed. And this night, the queue had started for the merchandising stall, gone into the venue, gone around the venue, gone around the venue inside, and then nobody knew where the end of the front of the queue began or anything. And they all started pushing on this wall, and the wall collapsed. Nobody got hurt, and we were still selling shirts, but Rush's tour manager, Lurch, actually came running over and was like, "You've got to stop, because we can't concentrate while this is going on," because the show was more important than selling the shirts. You know, it was one of those things that he didn't have the time to be concerned about the fact that the wall had come down and the fact that we were selling t-shirts in rubble or whatever. We had to shut it down because attention to detail was that the show was the most, they needed all the time on that.
And then by total contrast, you ended up working with the Motorhead,
yes,
as you mentioned.
that was my next tour actually, because we were girls selling merchandising, and I laugh about it. I'm not one of those people that turns around and goes, "That's so sexist" or whatever, you know. It was the way it was. The times were different. So there was a brunette and there was a blonde always selling merchandising. Who better to sell merchandising to guys at that time? And I made the mistake of letting the management know that I didn't particularly like heavy metal. So bang, I'm on heavy metal, because they would, for our safety, and I realise that now, that they never put us with bands that we were really into. They put us with something opposite, and so I got Motorhead. My friend got the Damned, who I was really into, and I got Motorhead. But hey, one of the best ever. I learned everything from them. I mean, there is nothing that their reputation went before them. There is nothing that any band has ever done since that can compare to what they did. But they did it not to be nasty in any way. It was just all pure good fun. And that's exactly what it was. We never hurt anybody by doing anything. You know, there were times when we went over the border into Scotland, and we went over in formation in like an arrow shape down the motorway, and it was before obviously the motorway went all the way up, and just outside of Carlisle, when it went into the dual carriageway, we turned into an arrow shape, and at the front they'd strapped the marshal amps on top of an estate car and had bagpipes playing out the top. And the police, I knew that this was going on, but because this was going on, they just ignored it all because they didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So we, like I said, we never hurt anybody, and it was 3 a.m. in the morning, so there was hardly anybody there.
You mentioned, you started out in 1979. You mentioned people might see some of the things that happen as being sexist in today's politically correct society. How genuinely difficult was it for you as one of the very few females working in that sort of environment? And do you think it's become easier for women to break into particularly that side of the business?
I get asked this a lot, and I get angry at women that say they can't do it. It's like, oh, get a grip. And it's not just women, it's like people. If you really want something, you can do it. Because I never knew when my time in merchandising would come to an end. So I put my whole heart into it and worked hard at it to be the best I could be at that job. So they're not going to get rid of me. But you have to be around the industry to get into the industry. And I don't care if you're male, female, or whatever you are, just do it. But don't expect, I sort of get angry too when people have done courses, for instance, on a tour management or something, and then they go, what am I going to do? But nobody is ever going to come to you and go, can you tour manage my band for me, unless you know them already. And also it's a way you need to know the industry from the bottom upwards, and tour management is the top. So don't expect to walk in at the top. And if you do walk in at the top, you won't last very long. You might last for as long as that band that you're working for lasts, but you need to know from the ground upwards. Because, like I say, Motorhead, 10 years on the road with Motorhead, and I only tour managed Motorhead for one night before I got my break. And that's all I needed, was 10 years working with them. Oh my God, she's worked for Motorhead for 10 years. She's lasted 10 years. There was only...
It's a badge of honour.
It was a badge of honour. There was only two of us that had done it, and one was Hobbsy, who passed away a few years ago, who was a sound engineer, and myself, and that was it. You know, so... But it went before me, and people were like, I don't care who she is. She could be boy, girl, Martian. 10 years with Motorhead has something to stand up for.
And of course, you've worked with many other films as well. And one of my favourite stories that I've read about you is you went to work for Black Sabbath, and the first time you met them, you didn't know who a certain two members of the band were.
Because I was the youngest, there's one job in merchandising back then that used to be the most horrendous job, and it was rolling posters. And I used to roll about 600 posters a night. I was just like kneeling on the floor, rolling a poster up, putting an elastic band around them and putting them in a bin bag. And that's what I was doing. So I'm doing this, and these two guys walk into the foyer, and I just went, can I help you? I remember just turn around and laughing between themselves, like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, well, where are you going? Again, they were laughing. I was like, And I suppose too, with being a woman at that point, I'm like, don't take the mickey out of me. You're not coming in. You can't come in. Have you got a backstage pass if you're going through that? No, we don't have backstage. Right, out the building. So I threw them out the front door. And it just was, because I suppose, like I say, because I was a woman, I had to prove myself that I could cope with everything. I could handle it. You know, so. But then I had thrown Madonna off stage too. Again, because I didn't recognise her. She came to a gig in America, and I was working for an American band, Concrete Blonde, and she was stood on the side of the stage. She didn't look like Madonna. She had a pair of jeans on, like everybody else did in there. She had a pair of trainers on, like everybody else. She had no makeup on, and she had her hair tied back. And I walk over to her and I just say, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to leave. While the monitor guy is throwing his arms up in the air going, no! And I didn't know who she was, so I asked her to leave. And I got a message from her afterwards saying that by now I might realised who she was, and there was no hard feeling because she was really impressed that I did my job. So, you know.
We could probably sit here all afternoon regaling stories, and I can identify with quite a few, some of the things that you have said about throwing people out of venues and so on. But that's a story for me for a different day. Kim, thank you very much for sharing your time. Thank you for coming to Belfast and sharing your win. Wee bit disappointed by the crowd numbers, I must admit, but I think you imparted some valuable insights. So thank you very much. And this is Monk from Uber Rock Television. I'm going to sign off in our usual fashion. Keep her lit, keep her between the hedges, and above all, keep it rock and roll.
Thank you.